It's been about 4 months since Blueprints came out, and I've had enough time away from the Mount Holly estate to settle my thoughts on the game. What's special and unique about it, and what are the things about it that don't quite work? To close out my coverage of the game, I thought it would be fun to share those thoughts with you all and create a space where I could hear your reflections. This video will have a lot of spoilers in the visuals, but much less in the VO, so you could always just listen. We're going to start with the most straightforward reflection and go from there. There were 2 moments playing Blueprints that will just rank up there with the best of gaming moments that I've had. The first moment was my first successful run to Room 46, so this took me just over 15 hours to pull it off. And this feels a little cheesy to say, but it was a pretty big rush. The excitement as things started to fall into place, getting the antechamber door open, having enough steps to get to the sanctum, and that wonderful time between pulling the north door lever and getting to Room 46 with that music. It was really just a wonderful experience that alone was worth the price of the game. The other experience happened sometime just after that, but instead of being one specific moment, it was more like a bunch of little moments coming together in this realization that there was just so much more to the game. Rooms I didn't have, mechanics I hadn't even experienced, and was this a story about a revolution? That slow build of discoveries flipped a switch for me. I realized this game wasn't just about getting to Room 46, but also about discovering the history of a realm and a family. And that feeling, those constant little revelations, became the thing that kept pulling me back. At its core, Blueprints is about generating a feeling of discovery. Yes, it's a puzzle game. Well, it's a few games mashed together. But the feeling it's built to evoke is that rush when you stumble onto something new or understand something for the first time. What's amazing to me is how often it delivers that feeling, and in such a variety of ways. When I think about it, there are 3 kind of discovery moments in the game. First, and the most obvious, is the puzzle solutions. These puzzles are more than just opening a locked door. They lead to more information, more mechanics, more experiences. You solve the chess puzzle and realize you're suddenly in a royal tomb. You solve the basement room puzzle and realize that this crazy rich person built a gigantic cog under his estate. And even if you haven't solved the puzzle for a while, there's a ton of discovery moments that happen around the story and the lore. Like the moment when I got into the attic and saw the picture of Herbert's mother and realized, that's the only picture of her in the house. Maybe they didn't get along. Or when I was in the classroom and noticed every kid's favorite color was red and began to sense that maybe there was something a little wrong with Fenarius. And finally, there's a lot of discovery to be had around new mechanics. I was consistently impressed by the amount of new toys that continue to pop up that gave a little twist on how to play the game. A scepter that allows me to alter the way rooms spawn. Getting my first allowance, working the star system, upgrading rooms, crafting new items, the shrine, love the shrine. Because the ways you get these moments of discovery are so varied, the first 20 or so hours of the game can be incredibly satisfying. I never really dead-ended for long because there was quickly something else interesting I saw, like a new set of paintings or a new tidbit of lore. This concept of variety is embedded in the game in a few ways, like in its genre. Blueprints is a puzzle game, it's a roguelike, it's a deck builder. It mashes these genres together, and I think that choice is a big reason why this game appeals to so many people. Just like how there are many ways to experience a feeling of discovery in the game, you can also lean on different playstyles depending on your mood. Personally, I'm not a massive puzzle game fan. I like them, but I get impatient, and then I cheat. And then I fall into what I call the puzzle game shame spiral. Oh, I should have gotten that. Oh, I would have gotten that if I just tried harder. Oh my god, I'm a terrible person. Why do they even let me play games at all? That type of thing. With a lot of puzzle games, like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is very cool, but I just didn't get through, I eventually get to this point where every path leads to a puzzle I can't solve, and after a while, I'm just done with it. With Blueprints, because of the combination of game mechanics, when the puzzles were getting me down, there was always something else to do. I could read through all the lore that I had discovered and find new connections. I could experiment with different shrine mechanics and see which ones I like, try to spawn rooms I haven't seen, and so on. Variety seems to be a key design philosophy of the game. It's even in the puzzles. You have logic puzzles, observation puzzles, spatial puzzles, and even ciphers for you New York Times game section nerds. Like all puzzle games, there are many temporary dead ends in Blueprints, but in the beginning of the game they rarely last long. and I say the beginning of the game because the experience does start to diminish as you play more. In a sense, Blueprints feels like two games. Yes, I made a chart. There's the push to Room 46, and then there's everything afterwards. And there's a lot more after Room 46 than there is before it. A lot of the people I've heard talk about their game experiences here tend to describe it in the same way. They start, there's that huge dopamine rush of 46, the discovery of how big the game is, and then the game gets more frustrating and they eventually kind of just stop playing. Why? I think the good and the bad of this curve is all about RNG. Randomness is embedded in the design of Blueprints through the room draft mechanics and the item spawns. There's been a lot of people sounding off on how they feel about this element of the game. Some think it's great, some think it's a problem. To me, it's both. The RNG of the game serves a vital function in the early and mid game. It pushes you in different directions, making sure that you have as many interesting paths forward as possible. I had so many runs where I started off with a particular goal, say opening the antechamber lever, that just because of the randomness couldn't happen. But because of that randomness, I also discovered a brand new room, or was able to unlock a safe, or got a new item. It's a mechanic that is well matched to the incredible variety of gameplay and discovery moments that are in the game. But once that variety starts to shrink, the effect of RNG becomes more frustrating. As your game progresses and you unlock more secrets and puzzles, the things you want to do become less varied and more specific, and that is not a good match for randomness. You know, it's like, all I want is for a battery, a lever, and a sledgehammer to spawn in one run, and it's been 4 hours. Sorry. You could see an extreme example of how this problem kind of exists when you attempt to do the day 1 achievement. This requires you to unlock room 46 on the very first day. To pull this off, you need a very specific set of rooms to appear and items to drop. It took me well over 50 attempts to make that happen, and it was pretty unpleasant. What happens is at some point you know everything you need to know. You've made all the discoveries, so the only real gameplay mechanic that you're engaging with is the randomness. That's a slot machine, not a mystery game. Now, I use that as an illustration. Again, I don't think the day 1 experience is the intended experience for most gamers, but it shows how randomness in this game moves from an asset to a problem. Of course, the designers knew this, and over the course of the game they give you a bunch of ways to tilt the scale, some of which are very fun, and that helps. But overall, the game's sweet spot is in the early and mid game, when the randomness helps you experience the variety that the game has to offer. This means that if you're a person who is comfortable leaving something with a little mystery, you're likely to have mostly good things to say about the game. If you're a completionist, or a content creator, you're going to live in this bad part of the curve. So the gamer has a role in their experience of the game, obviously. How they choose to engage with the game and how they choose to approach it affects their enjoyment. For me, the moment when I decided that every major story answer that was actually in the game had been uncovered, I was able to chill out and enjoy it more. But the designers of the game feed into this dynamic as well. Yes, you can write a letter saying, hey, mystery is good, to let us know that there are some things that aren't going to be answered, but after Room 46, the game practically shouts at you that there's a ton more. And then, the distance between Room 46 and the moment of the throne ascension, which essentially functions as the game's second ending, is pretty vast, with some complicated puzzles in between. A lot of people I know ended up leaving the game somewhere in between those two moments with the feeling of, well, I guess I'll stop. And that's a shame for such an amazing game. I don't think there's an easy solve for this, and I think the developers certainly worked hard and came up with some clever solutions. I also think that sometimes what makes a thing great is also its big weakness. But it will be interesting to see how developers who build off the success of this game look to solve that challenge. In the end, playing Blueprints was some of the most fun I've had with a game in a long time, and it's definitely one I'll remember. More than anything, it reminded me how good it feels to chase that spark of discovery, and how rare it is for a game to keep delivering it over and over again. Blueprints is also special to me for another reason. The story video is my first big video on YouTube. So I also want to just take a moment to thank everyone who watched that, commented, shared it. You've made the experience of this game even better, and I'm real glad I got to share the journey with you. But before you leave, I would love to hear from you. What moments have stuck with you? What maybe hasn't aged so well? And most importantly, did anyone else always think this was a coin purse when they ran through the lab? Let me know. The channel is just getting started, and coming up I'll have more videos similar to what I did for Blueprints, for classic games, for new games that capture everyone's attention. So if that sounds like something you'd like, consider subscribing, or maybe just drop a like. Either way, thanks very much for watching, thanks for all the support on the Blueprints videos, it's been greatly appreciated.